All right, we're going to talk about something pretty mind-bending today. A totally new way of looking at the universe. A paradigm that suggests everything we think we know about physics, well, it might just be one story, one perspective on a much deeper and more unified reality. So yeah, let's just dive right in.
So let me just start with this question. You know how we're always taught that the universe has these unbreakable laws, these fundamental rules defined by a handful of constants? But what if those rules aren't the cause of everything? What if they're actually the effect of something much, much deeper?
Yeah, these guys, CHG. They're the pillars of modern physics, right? The absolute bedrock. Everything from the grand scale of the cosmos to the weird dance of quantum particles is built on top of them. But the idea we're digging into today, well, it questions whether they're the bedrock at all.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by questioning what these constants really are. Then we'll introduce a new way to think about reality's properties, which will lead us to a pretty wild two-layer model of the universe. And from there, we'll see how this whole thing could potentially reshape our understanding of space-time, quantum mechanics, and, well, everything.
So let's jump into that first big question. Are constants like the speed of light a part of the universe's fundamental source code, or are they more like clues, symptoms, maybe shadows cast by a deeper structure that we can't see directly?
And if they are just clues, that leads to a really profound implication. It means any theory we build using constants like C or G isn't a direct photograph of reality. It's more of a derived view. It's a human perspective. It's a fantastic description of how reality behaves, but not what it fundamentally is. To really wrap our heads around that, we need to make a new kind of distinction. This whole new paradigm is built on a really simple but incredibly powerful idea. We need to separate reality's properties into two different types. It's all about telling the difference between what reality is and what reality does. And here they are. Think of it like cause and effect. On one side, you have structural properties. That's the cause. This is the actual stuff reality is made of. Then, on the other side, you have the behavioral properties. That's the effect. This is what reality does as a result of that underlying structure.
So what exactly are these structural properties? Well, forget about numbers and equations for a minute. Think about qualities. We're talking about the inherent geometry of the universe's fabric, its flexibility, its density, how it bends and stretches. This is the fundamental blueprint.
And from that blueprint, behavior just emerges. So in this view, the speed of light isn't some magic fundamental number. It's just a behavior that pops out of how elastic that fabric is. Mass and charge, they aren't primary ingredients either. They're just the behaviors that show up when the local shape of that fabric gets tweaked. Okay, so this whole distinction between structure and behavior, it leads us straight to the heart of this new paradigm, a two-layer model of reality. And this is where it gets really cool, because this is how we get from one single unified thing to the incredibly complex world of separate objects that we all see. All right, let's break it down. You've got layer one. This is the fundamental underlying reality. It's a single unified object. Let's just call it spacetime for now. And it's defined by those structural properties we just talked about. Then you have layer two. That's our reality, the one we live in. And it only appears when an observer, that's us or our scientific instruments, distinguishes and separates parts of that single object. That act of separation creates a world of individual things that follow behavioral laws. Just think about that core difference for a second. Layer one is all about unity, one single object, total coherence. But layer two, our view, is all about separation and distinction. It's about a bunch of different objects and their relationships between them. And here's the real kicker. Our entire body of physics, every law and equation we've ever discovered, lives exclusively in layer two. So you might be asking, why go through all this mental gymnastics? What's the payoff? Well, the payoff could be absolutely massive. This model gives us a completely new lens to look through, one that might finally help us solve some of the biggest, most stubborn puzzles in physics. I'm talking about the true nature of space-time and all that famous quantum weirdness. Now, this is a seriously bold statement, but it is absolutely central to the whole idea. Every single theory we have, from Newton's laws all the way up to Einstein's general relativity, is a layer two theory. They are incredible descriptions of our derived perspective, our world of separate things. And this is where my mind just kind of melts. The space-time from Einstein's theories? In this model, that isn't the fundamental fabric of layer one. Nope. It's what a local observer, stuck here in layer two, experiences when the true underlying fabric of layer 1 reshapes itself. So things like the constant speed of light or time slowing down, they aren't features of ultimate reality. They're features of our perspective.
So what about quantum mechanics? Well, this quote really gets to the heart of it. What if all the decades of debate over what quantum mechanics means, all the different competing interpretations, what if it's all just unnecessary?
Because here's the elegant solution this model proposes. Quantum weirdness, like entanglement, isn't weird at all. It's the natural, unavoidable result of taking one single coherent object in layer 1 and forcing ourselves to see it as two or more separate things in layer 2. Of course, they seem mysteriously connected. On that deeper level, in layer 1, they were never separate to begin with. So let's bring it all home. What does this really mean for us? This two-layer model isn't about throwing out centuries of science, not at all. It's about recontextualizing it. It's about fundamentally shifting our perspective on what it is we're actually describing when we do physics. So let's just recap the big takeaways. First, our physics isn't wrong. It's an incredibly powerful and effective description of our particular view, layer 2. Second, underneath it all, fundamental reality might just be one single unified thing. And third, the laws we observe and the objects we see are just behaviors that emerge from that one thing, created by the very act of us observing and making distinctions. And that, of course, leaves us with one final, very deep question to chew on. If layer 2, our entire perceived reality of separate things and distinct laws, is created through the very act of observation and distinction, then what does that say about the observer? What part of that fundamental, unified fabric of reality is the part that's looking back at itself?